A year ago, Blueface wasn't dominating headlines because of a hit song. He was making news for court appearances, arrests, and a situation that had clearly escalated beyond internet drama. What started as viral fame slowly turned into legal trouble, public chaos, and serious consequences. And the truth is, most people don't realize how fast it all fell apart. When Blueface first went viral, it felt almost accidental. His breakout moment came from a freestyle that spread online because of how unusual it sounded. His offbeat flow became a meme, but instead of hurting him, it helped him stand out in a crowded industry. In 2018, Respect My Crippin' gained traction, and then Thotiana changed everything. The song exploded across social media, radio stations picked it up, and major artists jumped on remixes. Suddenly, Blueface wasn't just a viral joke, he was a mainstream name. Money started coming in fast. Interviews, tours, performances, brand deal. The momentum was real. But even early on, there were signs that the attention around him wasn't only about music. Blueface understood controversy. He leaned into it. Social media arguments, online trolling, and unpredictable behavior kept his name trending. For a while, it worked. In the modern rap industry, attention often equals relevance. But controversy is difficult to control. Over time, the headlines became less about songs and more about personal drama. His relationship with Chrisean Rock turned into a non-stop viral storyline. Their arguments were public, their fights were recorded, police were called more than once. What might have been private issues became entertainment for millions of people watching online. At first, that chaos kept them both trending, but constant public drama slowly started affecting his image. At the same time, legal issues were beginning to build in the background. Blueface had previous run-ins with law enforcement even before his biggest success. There were incidents involving weapons charges and other arrests that made news locally. However, once he became famous, every situation was amplified. Cameras followed everything, reports spread instantly. In late 2022, a serious incident in Las Vegas became a turning point. Blueface was arrested in connection with a shooting outside a club. Authorities alleged that he fired shots at a vehicle after an altercation. He was charged with attempted murder and discharging a firearm into an occupied vehicle. Those are not minor accusations. For the first time, it wasn't internet drama or social media controversy. It was a case that carried the possibility of significant prison time. He was eventually released on bail, but the situation didn't disappear. Court proceedings continued, and the case remained active. Even though details evolved over time, the damage to his public image had already begun. When an artist faces charges that serious, brands pull back, business partners hesitate, opportunities slow down. Meanwhile, the relationship drama didn't stop. If anything, it intensified. Their arguments became more extreme, more unpredictable, and more difficult to separate from his public identity. At one point, it felt like Blueface was more known for chaos than for music. Instead of headlines about chart positions or new releases, the focus shifted almost entirely to legal trouble and personal conflict. Then came more legal complications. In 2023, Blueface faced additional issues, including probation violations connected to earlier cases. Court hearings stacked up, conditions became stricter, the pressure increased. The image of a rapper living carefree and untouchable started to fade. Reality was setting in. The biggest shift happened when sentencing decisions started becoming real possibilities instead of internet rumors. Facing potential prison time changes everything. It changes how fans view you, it changes how the industry views you, and it forces decisions that can't be solved with a viral post. Throughout this period, music output slowed down. While he still had supporters and a loyal fan base, the mainstream momentum clearly weakened. The industry moves fast. When you disappear from playlists and headlines for the wrong reasons, someone else takes your spot. That's the harsh reality of modern rap. At the same time, financial consequences began surfacing. Legal battles are expensive. Lawsuits connected to incidents, settlements, and court obligations add up quickly. Reports suggested that certain businesses were pursuing compensation tied to damages from the Las Vegas situation. When legal cases extend beyond criminal court into civil disputes, the long-term impact can stretch for years. By the time the legal system started moving forward in a serious way, Blueface's situation was no longer just online drama. It was real: court deadlines, mandatory appearances, judges making decisions that could affect years of his life. The Las Vegas case became the central issue. Prosecutors pursued charges tied to a shooting incident outside a club, and the accusations carried heavy consequences. Even when someone is out on bail, the pressure doesn't disappear. Every court date becomes a reminder that freedom is no longer guaranteed, and when you're a public figure, every update spreads instantly. As the case progressed, discussions about potential sentencing became louder. Legal analysts began explaining what the maximum penalties could look like. Fans started debating whether he would serve serious time or manage to negotiate a deal. The uncertainty alone damaged momentum. Brands don't invest in uncertainty. Labels don't push artists who might disappear for years. Then financial consequences entered the picture. Beyond criminal court, civil liability became part of the conversation. In situations involving gunfire and property damage, lawsuits often follow. Businesses seek compensation, victims seek damages, and legal battles in civil court can last longer than the headlines do. Even if an artist avoids the worst criminal outcome, financial pressure can continue draining resources behind the scenes. Meanwhile, the music slowed almost completely. Instead of building on his early success, Blueface's discography stopped growing in a meaningful way. In hip-hop, consistency is survival. If you disappear for too long, the audience moves on. New artists rise every month, trends shift, viral moments expire, and while the legal issues were unfolding, the personal chaos didn't stop. The public relationship drama continued making headlines. Arguments went viral. Emotional outbursts were captured on camera. At times it felt like the entire narrative around Blueface revolved around instability. The same unpredictability that once made him interesting now made him look reckless. The shift in public perception was subtle but important. Early in his career, people viewed him as entertaining. Later, many began to view him as self-destructive. That change matters. Audiences can forgive controversy when it feels controlled. They struggle to support chaos when it feels dangerous. Eventually, sentencing decisions became clearer. Reports confirmed that Blueface would face real consequences tied to probation violations and previous charges. Instead of speculation, there were official rulings. Jail time became part of the reality. Even if the sentence wasn't the maximum possible, the symbolism mattered. A rapper who once seemed untouchable was now dealing with confinement. For an artist, incarceration disrupts everything. Touring stops, studio time disappears, media presence fades, and in a fast-moving industry, absence is costly. Supporters argued that he could stage a comeback. Hip-hop has a long history of artists returning from legal trouble. Some even gain more attention afterward, but those comebacks require strategy, discipline, and a clear shift in image. Without growth, the same cycle repeats. The financial pressure also intensified during this period. Legal defense teams are expensive. Court fees accumulate. Potential settlements linger in the background. When income slows but expenses increase, the lifestyle that once looked glamorous becomes harder to sustain. Another critical factor was reputation within the industry. Collaborations slowed down. High-profile features became rare. Public perception affects business decisions. Even if an artist retains a loyal fan base, corporate partners often calculate risk carefully, and when risk outweighs reward, they move on. By this point, the narrative had fully changed. Blueface was no longer primarily discussed as a viral rapper. He was discussed as a cautionary example of how quickly fame can spiral. Interviews became less frequent. Music charts no longer reflected his presence. The spotlight dimmed, but the legal obligations remain. What makes the situation more complex is that none of it erased his early success. Thotiana remains part of late 2000s hip-hop culture. His viral rise is still a case study in how social media can launch a career overnight. The talent to capture attention was real. The platform was real. But attention without direction can become self-sabotage. Looking at the full timeline, the pattern becomes clear. Rapid fame, heavy controversy, escalating legal trouble, reduced industry support, financial strain, confinement. Each stage built on the previous one. The question now isn't just what happened, it's what happens next. A comeback is possible in theory. The music industry has seen artists return from worse situations, but it requires transformation. Audiences need to believe the chaos is over. Brands need to trust stability. Courts need to see compliance. If Blueface chooses to focus entirely on rebuilding through music, distancing himself from public drama, and staying clear of legal trouble, there is a path forward. But it would look very different from the version of him that first went viral. If the cycle continues, the outcome becomes predictable. So what really happened to Blueface? He didn't just fall off because the internet got bored. He became trapped in a pattern where controversy overshadowed talent, and legal consequences replaced viral moments. His story isn't just about one incident, it's about accumulation, decisions stacking up until they can't be ignored. And in today's industry, where attention moves fast and forgiveness is limited, that accumulation can end a career just as quickly as it began. Whether this is the final chapter or just the middle of a longer comeback story remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: fame gave Blueface a platform. His choices determine what happened next.